I decided to just name it main for now. And the URL I'm gonna actually name game. And here I'm gonna include where does it come from? Where does it come from? Where does it go? So here we have run game main import URLs. I honestly don't remember how to do that. Game.main maybe with name equals main for now. I mean, I don't want these here anymore. That's for sure. Namespace actually. Let's see if that worked. Improperly configured. Without specifying app name, it's not support. Set them and pass it to a couple containing a list of patterns and app names. So we need to specify the app name. So not even namespace. And it needs to be a tuple. I mean, we are kind of setting app name here already. So I really don't understand the issue. Namespace main. Oh yeah, of course. It's URLs. Does it need to be a string? I think that's it. Now we can go back to our test. Reverse for chat not found. So we don't have a URL called chat, which is true. Chat. Create view. So I always do it like this. Entity and then operation. And this implies that it's not a simple template view because we need to process a chat message. And we don't want to reload the whole screen. So now it's time to have a look at HTMX, whether we want to use that or go straight into good old server-side templating. No, I'm gonna do it old school for now. I'm gonna pretend there's no Ajax. There's just HTTP documents. chat. Create view. Let's say create view. And the model say chat line. It's probably not going to be create view because it's also rendering a template. And I don't want that. I just have a template here already. What is happening? Map not found. Of course. So I need to be authenticated already. And I'm going to fix that by creating an admin for now. Super user. Create super user. That is interesting. Okay. Player does not exist. So I need to create a signal receiver to create a player for every user. And I always have to look up how that works. Create player, just like that. Then we have sender, we have instance, some quarks. And we have the receiver decorator, which is a post save signal. Sender is user. And if instance. I think there's like rated in between as well. I'm gonna just create a player. Post save, where is it coming from? It's coming from model signals. to actually instance created. Just a bool. And here we can add a static helper that allows us to create a player given a user. So now if I create a player, it should also create, if I create a user, it should also create player. But we didn't have that before, so we need to fix that manually in the admin UI. We're gonna add a player for myself. And negative indexing is not supported. All right, so this is a limitation coming from the Django ORM, I think. The relational mapper. Relational object relational mapping. And we need to sort it, I think. Create it. Then we're gonna take the first 20. Python. No. Yeah. First 25. It's ordered by, I think. We can also add a test that it's not in the model, but it's on the web page. It's on the page that we got redirected to. Oh, no, that's a chat create view. That's a different test. No reverse for chat. Should be chat create. views can I use here? What kind of views can I use? The login required mixin. That's what I was looking for. So we have this model form, which is going to take care of some input validation. And we're only interested in the message field because that's our chat line. So let's see what our test does. Doing all right. How goes the programming? The programming goes really well. We're doing some test-driven programming, working on these mockups here. Game inventory. It's like an old school browser game here that I'm developing. And right now I'm working on the chat. And I'm writing tests to make sure that the chat feature works. So I'm gonna kind of develop these tests first, I think. And the goal is to have the player spawn here and walk around. That is like the immediate goal. (405) HTTP response not allowed. So that's because we need to tell the chat create view that methods allowed. I don't remember. Let's have a look. Here, HTTP method names. HTTP method names. No, actually, this is implied by a post that is taking a request, some quarks, and need to call super with the request and quarks. Or actually, I don't, because I'm the view already. Now I need to connect the form valid, form invalid stuff. So it's pretty much this here. In fact, I can copy the whole thing. Looks better. Check create view has no attribute render to response. That is true. But why is that a problem? Because form invalid. So if the form is invalid, form is invalid, I'm just gonna redirect the player from where they came from. Is there a nice way to do that in Django? Django redirect to source. Ooh, that looks really hacky. You can use the HTTP refer value. Copy paste programming. Default is actually reverse, probably reverse lazy or main. No. If we don't have a previous page, then please redirect to main map. I think that's a sensible thing to do. And then we need to say get is some kind of callable. Takes a request, an HTTP request in fact, and it returns HTTP response. It's supposed to be a list of things. Those type annotations are killing me. Expected type list. Well, that's what I have. No. Okay, that's gonna be hard to type, and there's really no added value to that. My views are full of type ignore. I know it's not good, I should not do that, but... oh well. So yeah, that's what we need. Success URL. Redirect to previous mixin. So what do we do if it's invalid? It's like a general question. How do we tell the user that something's wrong? We could just use toasts. Could use a toast because we don't have a lot of space to tell the user there's something wrong. A toast could also be... the question is like, how do I notify the user when something's happening? I want to use the chat for like everyday stuff, and maybe the toast for exceptional stuff, like I don't know, the chat message was too large for the server to process, stuff like that. What about the level up? How does that look like on mobile? Looks pretty good. And it disappears as well. Yeah, I think I'm gonna use that for server errors. No, not server errors. Yeah, also server errors, but mostly like user input errors. I could turn a message using the message framework into a toast. Which means I'm just gonna messages. So Django mess on trip. Yeah. From Django import messages. I don't need these here. And I can just add a message that something went wrong. So first argument is the request, then return, redirect. So super get success URL. And the redirect comes from Django. Should be a util. Utils. Actually, don't know. Shortcut. And I need to reverse it. Just gonna make sure I don't miss anything in the chat. Get success URL. I mean, just get previous URL actually. Not even success. Set the request. So that's it, the base environment for a request. Here we need to put the HTTP referrer, request factory. I'm just gonna override it and put any value. So let's try it. My client, just a client. It's just a client. Def request, def base environment request. Super base environment request. Here I'm just gonna inject my values. Reverse. It's actually no, I don't need to reverse it. I can just say main map. Let's just pretend every player comes from main map. We don't need to reverse it actually, because it's a proper path already. But let me print the content of meta. Print request meta. Key error. Yes, we know that. Seems pretty empty to me. And I don't need a custom client. I need a path tracker mixing that is tracking the player. How do I get the current path? I don't mean the full path, I mean the Django path. It's probably not path, it's probably URL. Path info. I think that is it. Path info, URL name. I'm gonna override view, just like this one. I mean get, and I'm gonna track where the user is for every GET request. But then I cannot sensibly cache it. Maybe I should use HTMX after all. Probably shouldn't store in the database where the user is, like UI stuff. It feels like a hack to me already. So is there a way how to nicely append new chat to whatever is here already? I'm gonna use that for sure. Some polling. After end appends the content after the target in the target's parent element. That could work for new chat. I'm just gonna swap the whole thing. We can, with Flexbox, we could reverse the whole thing, and then the browser will make sure it's always we're always looking at the newest messages. I think that makes sense. So this can be apparently solved using CSS only. And then I could just swap the whole, like everything with HTMX. I don't need to do a full page reload. And I don't need to keep track where the user came from, because we're just gonna swap one element. The drawback is that we don't get that free refresh of everything else, because, you know, the field might have been changed, like new NPCs could have spawned, other players could have entered the same field. So we need to just constantly keep polling, I think, with the field, like with a sensible 1 second or whatever. Make sure we're not hitting the database too much, just hitting Redis mostly. So Redis is like going to be a core component of this thing. The drawback is I cannot use Django. It's not idiomatic Django. I mean, I can use Django, but the testing tools, the views are not really for that. But I think it will give a better user experience. So chat mixin stays here. Previous URL mixin we don't need anymore. Because if it's an invalid form, we need to do error handling differently. So HTMX has these out-of-band swaps, where you can just send HTML with an ID, and HTMX will swap in the right element. Yeah, so the example is showing an alert. So this is what we could use for the toast to notify the user that something was weird. It's gonna make testing harder though. I don't want to do that for sure. I mean, I'm going to have to use HTMX anyway. So I might just start using it now. Hmm. Oh, do I hear stage 3? I don't know. So, what are the drawbacks? What are the cons? What are the pros? If I use HTMX, the user experience is slightly nicer, but testing is going to be harder. I need to kind of write my own testing layer on top. I cannot reuse Django's testing stuff. I mean, I could, but it's not that nice anymore. Let's just try it. Let's try it. So for instance, create view. So we need to start thinking in fragments. We need to render chat fragment and render error post error fragment and send it down to the client. And in case of form valid, we just need to render the chat fragment. Also, I need to set I feel like we should still communicate using HTTP status codes. I feel like that's the right thing to do. We should still stick to standards. I think that's also very much the philosophy of HTMX. So, do we need to adjust the tests? I create a chat, response 200. I will have this new chat line in the model. Let me extract it here. And make sure that it's in the response as well. Because the player wants to see what they wrote, right? In chat, so I make a string out of the byte array. That works. Then if there is a certain chat line, which we need to still implement, I mean the fixture of it. There's a chat line, it's returning a chat line, and I'm using a chat line factory. Seems a bit overkill, but I like to separate my factories and my fixtures. For various reasons. Restarting my LSP server. because it didn't pick up some of my new files. There we go. Django model, factory, class meta, model is chatline, and we need to provide a user, sayer actually. So that's the user. That's the user who says something. That makes sense. So and we still have these, and we have these. I have a chat line of any user. It doesn't have to be the player user. And I'm gonna log in. I'm gonna have a look at the main map, which is this screen here. And I'm testing that the response contains the chat line message of the fixture chat line. And yeah, I think it makes sense. We'd also test for the unhappy path, for the error case. I'm just not sure how to provoke an error here, just by posting a chat line right now. That's a new one, import file mismatch. So the hint is I should remove PyCache, which I don't even have. I'm just gonna remove this one, PyTest cache. And it's still here. So maybe something with the fixture. Fixtures here. So what did I do? That looks all pretty good to me. I should commit more often. Then I would have stepping stones. Let's make the linter first happy. Okay, linter is happy. Type checker is not. That is so weird. Game, main, tests, and let's remove the PyCache. Interesting, very interesting. Right. Why do we want to collect tests? Conf test. Test admin, test views, factories. The same thing. This is not gonna fix it. This is called being desperate. So PyTest cannot collect some errors, some tests. Import module game test has this by attributes. I don't know why it complains about this. In my case, it was missing in it, but it's not missing in my case. It's here. It's here and it's doing really well. And it's an empty file, like not much you can do wrong. PyTest init I haven't touched. Tests.py and test underscore anything py. This should work. Yeah, it does. But this should work also. That's why it's very confusing. Tests. It should find the same amount of tests because I'm using the latter pattern here. I don't use this pattern almost at all, but it should work. Like, why did it stop working? That's more the question. Tests, which is not the same as the test file we want to collect. Why do we want to collect that file? Tests. I mean, sure, let's fix it. So we need to implement the view of these to-dos essentially. How do you render again? Render template, for instance. I think it's in the base ones. Render to response, response class. I swear there is a utils, there is a helper. Alt render. Even a shortcut. There it is. So we need to render the chat fragment, because we're gonna only send back that small piece of HTML here, and HTMX is doing the magic for us. Takes a request, and it takes a context, which we need. And takes a template name. I underscore fragments, so I know that they cannot be rendered standalone. They need to be either included into pages, or they can be sent down to the client, just like that. Some lovely spam going on. All right, let's do this. So we have the base. It's all about the base. And we want to send down this chat fragment. Probably just a list group, because we don't want to change the input field. Or do we? Then we could clear it. Yeah, I think we want to send down the whole thing. Then I need to wrap it weirdly, and max height won't work. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Or I can just clear it. Maybe htmx clear input field. I hate that it's ungoogleable. HTMX, it's impossible to Google. Yeah, but do I really want that? That is the question. Chat fragment. I still want it to be 30% of the everything. I need to kind of proportionally increase that. So let's say this is 90, this is 10. I have no idea whether it was mathematically correct. Oh, I hate that. Now it's not working. Now I just need to start adjusting my view to HTMX. That is the annoying part. I'm still not sure whether that was the right decision, to be honest. I think I want too good of a user experience. Everything for the user. Everything for the player. It's alright, I can do some out-of-band swapping maybe. I don't know whether there is a performance impact. So this is the chat fragment, chat lines fragment maybe. This is the chat input fragment. I could also use this to do some server-side validation that looks like it's client-side, because it's doing the round trip. So it actually makes sense to be able to talk to the chat input directly. or I'm just telling myself that it makes sense. So this is the viewport height. Okay. Back to working. And I'm gonna use this out of band swapping a lot, I think. It's always gonna be like the main content, which is the chat line fragment. Chat lines fragment. That's what it is. And then I'm gonna send the chat input fragment and optionally some error messages that will be rendered as toasts. Sounds like a plan. All right, probably need a folder fragments. So this is gonna be all the fragments that I'm gonna send. Or is it enough to have it like just underscored? I have so many questions today, Jesus. Desperately looking at my coffee because it's empty. So, where are we? What's the big picture? We are trying to make this test green. That is testing the chat feature, the chat function. So players should be able to submit a chat line using this input field here, using this button. And we're going to use HTMX for that. And let's break up this whole chat into chat lines. It's just this fragment here. And we need multiple templates, actually. Chat response. So what's the render doing under the hood? I think the Django templates API is quite straightforward. Like, where's the lower level Django template render? Maybe some Stack Overflow question. Yeah, I know about that one. So where's this loader coming from? Loader. It's the loader here. Alright, so we're using the dynamic. I mean, this is pretty straightforward. I can live with that. Because then we don't need to name another template. And just render this guy here. Chat lines. Template name is main chat lines HTML. Context is always self. Let's get context data. Request is self request. Using. What is using? Let's see what happens if we omit it. And the loader, which comes from Django itself. Then we have the chat lines rendered as a string. I'm not sure I like that still. I would much rather just return one thing that HTMX can swap. Maybe it's just chat response. Maybe it's just a template called chat response. And maybe like this, chat response. Chat. And same thing actually with this guy here. But status is, let's just say 400 for now, and context. Contains an error. Error message. Could not chat. Could not send chat message. It might be less awkward. Maybe that's how the view looks like. Now, chat could be this whole thing here. And it's just a fragment, remember? It's not a full-blown page. But this is almost like a DSL for HTMX for this specific game. Ajax OOB is true. And then the cool thing is we might be able to reuse this. So we can just say include main chat HTML. So that's the plan. And we probably need to add error use toasts or include toast for error message. And it's a to-do. And this is probably gonna be like include main toast. And toast is pretty much this one here. ID what is the MDN ID HTML ID naming convention snake case camel case, because everything is snake case and Bootstrap 5 examples are camel case sometimes, and I'm like weirded out by it. There isn't one. I use underscores all the time. Now I use camel case. Dashes. Yeah, so dashes are industry standard now. So why is Bootstrap using camel case? So use whatever. That's like the gist. toast. Hide. We don't want to hide it. And we need in our base template, in our base template, we need to put the toast somewhere. I think right above the messages, that would make sense. Just so HTMX will find it. Okay, so there's that. We have our chat fragment that we will send down to the user. We don't run HTMX just yet. We're just gonna render things. Chat create view object has no attribute object. That might be. Why do I need object? Because of this model form mixin. Actually don't need a model form mixin. It's a bit too much. I'm just gonna use a form mixin, or yeah, I'm just gonna create my own form class. Chat line form create chat create form. From forms import chat form. Forms doesn't exist yet, so I'm gonna create one. Chat create form, which is a forms dot form, and it has a message field. Is it fields? No, that's not it. It's a text input. Pretty basic. We don't need the chat line anymore. Forms is here. Chat create form. Chat create form. Why is it not? Let's restart my LSP server. Okay, now we don't need a model. Let's see. Cool, something's happening. Oh, this is a test. It's not contained in our response as expected, because our response is just HTML hard-coded, and now we need to loop through this, loop through our chat lines. Base form, can it be assigned? This is not a base form anymore. This is a chat create form. Same as here. Chat create form. Get form is a base form. I mean, I could also just, I mean, there's no benefit in knowing that it's a chat create form. Or type safety, regarding type safety, I mean. So we need a context for sure. And in that context, we will store, cannot create consistent method ordering. Is anyone using context here? Ah, there we go. So we have it already. We have the context here. And we just say, wait, we don't already have the chat mixin. So we could use the chat mixin. then we have our chat lines here. For chatting chat lines. Nothing was ever said. Create it and chat.message. Now I expected things to work, not gonna lie. Chat lines. That's correct. Let's have a look at the test. So creating the chat, we get a response. Response is 200, which is actually true. Let's see whether the model. Oh, the model fails already. That's because we're not even creating a chat line if the form is valid. So we need to do that here. We need to say chat line, chat line objects create. But I should hide that constructor behind some interface. Add chat add self dot request dot user. Is the user or player? It's always a hassle to get the player. To get the player, it looks like this. I mean, I could just use a player mix-in, I suppose. What would that look like? Player mix-in. That's player. And this will always return player. So it's not even optional. It's just a player. And return this. I could player mixing and player just say chat add player form cleaned data message. From chat import chat. So chat is going to be like a separate module. Because models should contain only database models, or things that are stored in database. And we stored chat lines, but chat, I feel like, will be using chat line amongst other things. This is like my intuition saying that I should do that. Because then I can just have like a static method here with a player. It also is really nice to avoid circular dependencies, and you kind of start thinking about what class, what module knows what other class, what other module, and in my opinion that's one of the most important things when it comes to maintainability, even more so than, you know, static typing versus dynamic typing and so on. So this is not returning anything. The message is a string, and chat is allowed to know how to create a chat line. So we're creating a chat line here with a layer and a message. See, this is wrong. This should be a player. Player is not defined, so we have a circular dependency here. I don't know whether it should be possible for a user to chat if they don't have a player. Like in theory, that should never happen. So there's a trick how to fix this. Django types. There we go. Message was not there. Message is the only thing that should be there. Clean data message. At least it's calling form valid already, so let's see what it validated. It's empty. Text. Char field. Could be a char field actually. I think I made that mistake before. Got an unexpected keywords. Yeah, so we need to migrate the whole thing. We changed the sayer to be a player. Chat line got an unexpected. Well, yeah, that is true because the sayer is a player. Cannot assign user A Thompson. Must be player instead. Well, that's what we're doing, no? Alright, factory, of course. I need to also tell the factory that it's a player factory. It's not a user factory anymore. Great, our tests are green. Our linter is happy, our type checking is happy, and we have one unapplied migration, but that's alright. So what we did is now we implemented chatting without actually implementing it, so we just use tests. It should be quite easy now to also adjust the template, the mockups to work. And Yeah, then we have a chat actually, where people can chat together. I think I'm gonna implement walking around, and then it's time to deploy the whole thing. Implement backend side of the chat feature. Okay, great. And I think now it's time for Easter brunch. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and see you next time.